Buddy, it's Mike here again. I want to show you my new oil burner setup. Got it hooked up in the garage here. I got it hooked up. I got the new Magic Heat hooked up. I got a couple little bonuses hooked up with a vented sight feed drip valve. Got oil filters attached to the system. I'm going to show you a couple things here about the system. Some things have improved. I'll show you the filter system, the oil transfer system, from the base bucket to the top bucket, the gravity fed. I'll bring you through everything. Just want to start you off in the video and take a look around. Alright, here's the main bucket, and this is where I pour my oil into. I just got a type of funnel. It's screened to get the majority of the large particles out. It goes to a pump. Pump goes up. It's of course got to shut off about halfway to stop oil from coming all the way down the system. But I'm going to start down here. So this is just a simple funnel you got here. I threaded it into the bottom here of a strainer basket. This is a Donaldson 10 micron strainer. It goes on top of a how do you say, hydraulic tank, and this is also hooked up to just a simple pump. I'm going to show you the bottom of it, and that's what it looks like. So the oil comes into there, gets strained 10 micron, so everything in this bucket is basically filtered to 10 micron. And it's a good system. It keeps everything clean. I don't want any large particles in the system, so that's how I keep all the large particles out. It's fairly simple. It comes up here to the valve shutoff. This is 1-inch ball valve. This is basically for all the oil that's pumped up to the top, so it doesn't come back down again. I'm going to show you that in great detail there in a minute, because essentially you could pump up a full container of oil up to the top here, and let's say it's 3/4 full, let's say, and then you fill the bottom one up. And you say, well, I want to fill this top one up again. You fill it up a little more. Essentially, that stuff can come back down again and overfill the bottom bucket, and that's what's going to stop that. I also put an easy-to-read little gauge system here. That's 2 tire valves on the bottom. Keeps it nice and smooth, nice and clean. It's oil tight. And then you can tell where the oil is. And I put the same one in at the top here. So I'm going to bring you up here, and you can take a look at this as well. So this is the top bucket system. It's fairly simple. I got 2 iron 90s here, 3/4 inch. And basically it just goes out to the top here. I wanted to make sure this was nice and short, because if it was too long and it went too deep into the bucket, it would cause a siphon action when the oil started to drip back down again, and it would essentially draw everything out from wherever the bottom of that hose was. So as short as possible. I kind of leave it a little loose as well. As fluid comes in, the air gets pushed out. The air has to go somewhere. So I tend to keep it a little loose. I always keep an eye on the gauge. It tells me just how much oil is in the bucket. Now all of this gets hooked up again to a small tire valve. You can see it right there. It goes to another flexible pipe and goes to a copper tubing right here. It goes all the way along to a Donaldson, another 10 micron filter. It has needle valved left and right, so on the in and out. This is just to make sure that anything that has gotten to this container, if anything has passed that first screen down there, that strainer basket and screen, made it up here, I do not want it to go into the drip needle valve. That has a very small orifice in it, and I don't want to get plugged. And because they're both 10 micron, this one will rarely get plugged. I mean, I'll have to clean out the strainer basket before I ever have to clean this out, and that'll last me a very long time. So I'm going to bring you over here now. Yeah, so this is the filter again. I bled it out from the top initially when I was setting up the system. I filled it full of dirty oil, and I bled the entire system. Now when you fill these, you have to fill them the proper side, because clean oil comes in and then out, and you don't want to be pouring all the dirty oil on the outside. You want to make sure that dirty oil goes inside and it cleans it and filters it all the way out. Now these things can work through gravity fed. Gravity can do the job, doesn't have to be pressurized. which makes it ideal for this application. And I plumbed it, as you can see, right here. Now this is just a standard filter top. You can plumb these down at your local hardware store. As you see, I got the cast fittings, then it goes down here to the copper, and the copper pipe and the T-valve once again. Same thing on the opposite side. And this goes and wraps around just like I had it before. Preheats it around the flue. This warms up the whole entire system before it gets to the vented sight feed drip needle valve. These things are very expensive. I had a hard time finding one here because, well, they're all in the States. Trying to find one in where I live is almost impossible, and they want an arm and a leg. I mean, one had a glass container above here, and you had to continuously fill this. I mean, it was only this big, and they wanted close to $400 for this. And you had to constantly fill it. You couldn't even hook up a copper pipe to it. This one, the States, I believe it was Granger's, $40. I got a few of them just in case. And it's got the sight here, and I'll just turn it off here for a second. You can get this thing dripping at a good rate. You can turn it down. It always drips at the same rate, or you can go pretty much straight stream. I mean, it works great. I'm very pleased with this needle valve. Going to the magic heat. There she be, heat exchanger. Heats up the garage very well. It's automatic. It hooks up to a power line. It has to be always plugged in, and it's a safe distance away there. All the way to the back. And this goes down to the original burn pot rake drum system that I've showed you all before. So I'm going to start this thing up, and you're going to see this thing kick on and show you little things around as well here. Alright, so I just took out the pot. This was, I burnt yesterday for, I don't know, maybe a couple hours. As you can see, it's pretty dirty. I'm using standard 10W30 right now. I have it mixed in 80-20. That's diesel oil along mixed in with the 10W30. I want to give it a little cleaner burn. Diesel oil for me is burning very hot, and I could only get this around 450 degrees. It's as hot as it's going to get right now. It's going to take a little more tampering, a little more figuring out. That's basically it. There's not too much in there, and it's pretty soft. It's crunchy at the bottom. Very little tar on there. As you can see, very dry. So I'm going to just give it a quick brush out, and we're going to start one up for you. Alright, so I just cleaned it out. I want to show you a few little things that I've changed on this pot since the last time. Nothing really major, but what I did was I put a little notch in the back here, and I put a little tab on the back of my pot, and this sits there, and once it sits inside, it doesn't move quite easily. I was finding I was having problems with this spinning, and now it sits, the little tab sits on the little groove there, and now this is lined up with the channel inside. I did that intentionally, like, you know, I don't want it spinning, I don't want it running off that channel. And this keeps everything nice and square. Nice little addition. You'll come across little things like this once you're building yours. I also increased the air holes. The original setup, I believe, called for 1, 2, 3, 5 holes, I can't remember. But I've increased the diameter and added more. And it is a vast improvement. I think the size of the burn pot has a direct correlation with the amount of holes and the size of air holes, and I haven't figured that out just yet, but I'm still thinking about increasing the diameter of these holes. I think it's going to make a cleaner burn and a hotter burn as well. That's a little addition I did on here, and that's about it for improvements on the burn pot. Okay, so now I'm ready to light this up. I'm going to put some starter fluid. This is some 10W30. I got some diesel oil. I have some kerosene, some Varsol. I mean, all sorts of things that are nice and flammable. Lights up pretty good. I also got a little bit of used gas here. I just put it in the bowl, lights everything up. This is diluted gas, also with some Varsol and things like that. It's not as flammable as pure gasoline, but you'll see that when I light it up right here. I'm just going to pour a little bit in. It's kind of hard doing this with one hand. It's going to be a little messy, but put a little bit of gas in there. I also put a little bit of oil in here because the pump didn't want to pump pure gas. It likes to pump oil. So put a little bit of oil in there just so it's pumpable. There we go. This is what I'm going to do. This is going to be a little tricky with one hand, so you're going to have to bear with me a minute. I tend to do this a specific way. I tend to leave it off the back like this so it gets maximum air. And very hard to do this with one hand, but I'm going to try. Oh, there she goes. Oh, it died out. Now I have a few tools here. I want to show you that might just help me out. I'm going to put a little crack here. I noticed that if I put a little bit of air in, it really helps out this burn a lot. That's what I'm going to do here. Oh, I'm going to have to shut her down here for a sec. I'm going to try something else here. I'm just going to try to ignite it. Maybe just so it gets hot a little bit here. It's burning pretty good. If it gets a little bit of heat, it'll be a little easier. As you can see, pretty good there. I'm going to back it off a bit, get a little more air. And there you go, that's how she's lit. Just like that. Now it's going to be a few minutes before this thing really, heats up and lights and runs efficiently. So I'm going to shut her down, and we'll get back in about 5 or 6 minutes.